Hey everyone, this is the Utah YF&R committee. We're here talking about the Excellence in Ag Award. So I'll let these fine couples introduce themselves.
Okay, we can go first, I guess. We are the Spackmans, Brady and Amanda. We are from Cache Valley. We won the Excellence in Ag Award 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And that was way cool. We have a dairy farm in Richmond. Brady also works a full-time job for Schooler, selling animal feed and commodities. I am a stay-at-home mom, and we have three little boys. That's pretty much all about us. So unless you have something to add.
That's great.
We are Clayton and Dakota Rindlisbacher from Juab County. We won 3 years ago, and we farm down here in Nephi. Clayton works for the LDS Welfare Farm, and I work for the Nephi Irrigation Company and stay home with the kids. And we also run a family pumpkin patch, which is recent and been a lot of fun. So that's a little bit about us.
Awesome. And I'm Sakia White. I am the YF&R coordinator for these Yahoo's. So with that, we'll get right into the application and we'll kind of look at the application and the rubric side by side so we can kind of compare as we go through. That's been something that's been very important, and I feel like over the years, looking at applications that have come through, had people looked at the rubric along with the application, I think it would have helped them in the long run better. So, while I'm getting my screen pulled up, Brady and Amanda, do you guys want to talk about what is the ideal applicant for this award rather than the Achievement Award and kind of how they're different?
Yeah, so we had the opportunity when we won it, and when we competed at nationals, that we actually sat at dinner with one of the judges that judged our room. Got some really good feedback from him. Um, and essentially, the Excellence in Ag Award is for those who aren't in full-time farming, but still have a tie to agriculture. But your income isn't necessarily completely subject to the market or um, to your operation.
Right.
So that's the situation we were in. But the biggest thing that he told us with this award is you just need to tell your story, tell a really good, compelling story. It's a little different than the Achievement Award in that you don't necessarily need to talk about, how cool your operation is. I mean, tell your story about your operation, but not so much like the nitty gritty of your operation. It's the Tell Your Story Award for those of us that are tied into with agriculture, but maybe not there full time and 100% dependent on it.
Absolutely. So this is like Brady said, if you've got a job in town, and whether it has to do with agriculture or not. I mean, we've had people apply for this in the past that they're teachers or that they work in the medical field or whatever, but this line right here on the application just kind of sums it up that it's for an individual or couple. Some people think that you have to be a couple to win. Not true. We had an individual just this past year that won this award individually and nationally. I've seen winners that are just individuals, and I've seen winners that are couples too. So you can be either, but just that you don't make the majority of your income from production ag that you own, if that makes sense. Brady said that way better, but. Yeah, so with that, we'll get right into it. Before we get too far, let me just show you, mess this up for a second. If you go to utahfarmbureau.org to our website, click on Leadership and Programs, and then Young Farmers and Ranchers, and then Awards and Competitions or Competitive Events. Right here, you'll see the different award pages. This is the Excellence in Ag Award. Ah, these people look a little familiar. How's the four-wheeler running, by the way?
Good.
Fantastic.
Good. Okay. If you win a four-wheeler. So definitely you should apply just for that. But down here you'll see the application And we usually put it in a doc form and a PDF, and then we have the rubric on there as well. And we'll change that to be the right thing, but the right application is on there in a doc form. But okay. So with that being said, we'll just jump right into the application. Now that you kind of know the perfect candidate for this award. The other thing that this award has is a presentation component, and we'll talk about that at the very end. I think a lot of people hear that and instantly are nervous to apply. Don't be nervous to apply. The presentation is not as daunting as it seems or sounds. So, we'll get into that. So, the rubric's kind of broken down into 2 points. Um, this is just the um
Like the grading system
yeah, that's
almost.
just for the presentation, but this is for the questions. So if you look at this one, it says kind of breaks it down. So the majority of the grading for this rubric comes from questions 2 to 4. Those are talking about ag involvement, impact on ag, and issues facing agriculture. So those are kind of some of the things that it's going to talk about. But we'll come back to that as we need. So, first page of the application, very brief. Note that applications are due September 26th at 5 p.m. You just email them to this email. We'll email you back, say, hey, we got your application. Thanks for sending it in. But this first page, just want to know your information. Nothing crazy. Note that it says A1 and A2 here. So, probably the one thing that's the hardest for people to grasp with the this and a application is that it needs to be written in first person. So I, me, we, she, he. No, we don't want it to say my husband's name's Brady. Because when we give these to the judges, we want it to be as subjective as possible. We don't want them to be able to see any identifiers or anything like that. And so keep in mind whoever you put here as A1 is who you'll refer to as A1 in your application. Same for A2. Obviously, if you're by yourself, then you're just A1 the whole time. So, all right, first question. As we go through this too, if you guys want to feel free to just kind of share some things that you put in each category or maybe some things that you didn't put in, but maybe you heard after through feedback from judges that you could have included, things that stuck out to you for good or bad. So, personal background, and note each question is going to have a character limit. Now, I had an applicant last year for a different award that thought characters and word count was the same thing. It's very much not. Characters include spaces, periods, apostrophes, that kind of thing. Word count obviously just includes words. So you could imagine if they had done 2,000 words rather than 2,000 characters, there was kind of a difference there. So just note that approximately get as close to that. If you're within probably 10 to 20 over or under, you're probably fine. But want to know family education, personal interest. What did you guys put here?
So we were told, maybe this is wrong, but to not sound like you're babbling though. So if you're gonna be under, then just, make sure you're not trying to just put random stuff in there
Yeah.
just to make it longer. Like tell your stuff and kind of go from there because I guess they'd had people that were just rambling at certain points to try to get to those characters.
For sure. Yeah, you definitely have to know the difference between rambling on to fill the characters and putting quality, like it's the quality over quantity of information, right? You would rather go with quality of information than quantity of information, but somewhere in the middle there, right? So good point.
So we started off with Clayton's background, and then we did like my background, and then we kind of did our together background. I don't know. That's how we formatted ours.
Brady and Amanda, what did you guys do?
Yeah, we were the way we did it is uh, kind of our background collectively, and we kind of combined that as if we'd been married our whole lives because we both kind of had very similar interests. So it was easy for us to do that just because we both had similar interests, and so we could just say, we grew up on farms. We were very interested in agriculture. We knew that even though maybe we didn't necessarily know each other early in life, but that's kind of how we structured it. And then we just kind of broke it down into two, like what my day job is, and then second paragraph was what our operation is like and what families involved there and kind of what our operation is.
So day to day,
Yeah, just kind of 30,000 foot level.
yeah. I think it's great. And I think if I remember right from reading your guys' applications, I think Brady and Amanda, you guys kind of told yours from the stance of like Brady was talking the whole time. So you referred to Amanda as my wife, da 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 da. And Clayton and Dakota, I think your guys' was more like A1, A2.
Yeah, he, she, they.
Yeah.
So more
Well,
in that.
we grew up very differently than Brady and Amanda. Like Dakota wasn't involved in agriculture at all. And so we kind of highlighted that difference and saying how agriculture has really kind of brought us that main goal that we have now together.
Yeah,
And it's kind of highlighted that just the difference in that part of it. So
absolutely.
Yeah, and with ours, I used a lot of we. We didn't necessarily specify who was actually talking, but it was pretty obvious because, I mean, obviously my last name was also the same as the name of the operation that I named in there. So it's pretty obvious who it was, but we tried to keep it a lot of we type language and not me, my wife, things like that to kind of differentiate us.
And that's something that's important too, if you are applying as a couple, is that it comes off that both of you are involved in the whole thing. We had an application a couple years ago that it was very apparent that it was one-sided and the other person was just there. And the judges want to see equal things. And so using language like we for things and as we get through this more, we'll be able to pull out things of like, okay, if one of you has this many things and the other one has this many, what can we do to add to this space, right? We'll be able to we'll get to that here in a minute. But okay, rolling into question two. So they don't, I mean, you're graded on this um first question, but like not to the degree of like they're going to grade you on questions 2 through 4. So if you remember, 2 through 4 is worth 180 points. So 45% of the whole application comes out of the next three questions. So, and this question's actually broken into, I think, just A and B. So this is, please explain the applicant's occupation. And this is about agricultural involvement. So, you guys can kind of talk about what your occupations are.
Yeah, so for us, this has got a little bit more specific because earlier we had explained that, one of us works and one's a stay-at-home mom. And so when it came to explaining our occupation, it's pretty obvious who that is, right? And so that was a lot more, my job is this is what I do. And then later on was more of an opportunity of when we're talking more about the operation is more what we did together, right? So, and we tried to emphasize that as much as we could. But in this particular case, um, this is where for our situation, it was definitely more pointed towards what my job is.
For sure.
see,
And there
this is
are
where
going
we
to
kind
be
of
times in the application when they're like that. But like Brendelsbacher's, yours was a little different.
Yeah.
well, this is where we kind of tied in both of our agricultural involvement because like I work a day job as an ag
So do
and
I.
so does Dakota, but then we come home and we like to
Do ag on the
do ag
side.
on the side. And that's where we tied in the we part is we're still involved outside of our day jobs that are still involved in ag.
Yeah,
So we just are revolved around ag at that point.
But to bring it home to what Brady's saying, the we part is they want to make sure and they want to know that we're both involved in this and that we both
Right.
care as a couple, and that's a big one I think in the judging part of it.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important to note, Sakia, that in this application, you're not supposed to put anything like you can't say Utah State University, correct?
Yeah, no identifiers. So
Identifiers, that's the word I was looking
yeah,
for.
you
So you
can't
have
say
to
we
be
live in
really
Grab County.
careful about that. You can't say I live in Nephi, Utah. Like you've got to be, that's where I think people really struggle, especially when they're trying to explain stuff about
Well,
them.
it sounds so vague because it's like you're reading. I'm just reading our application. It says he went to college. I'm like,
Like,
that's cool, but you also don't want to be specific, and so
yeah.
it's
And got a bachelor's, you know, you can't say he went to this university.
Right.
Kind of tricky.
And it's one of those things that you just have to think outside the box of how you're going to say it. So instead of saying, he went to Utah State, it was he attended the land grant university in our state, or he attended the agricultural college in our state, or we live in the central part of our state. Like it just takes a little bit of thinking through it, but you're glad knowing that there's no identifiers in anyone else's applications when judges are looking through them too. So, pretty self-explanatory that one. 2B says, please explain the personal involvement in agriculture slash agribusinesses. So this is where, like in Clayton and Dakota's case, this is where we're going to now start talking less about the 9 to 5 and more about the 5 to 9, right? What are we doing when we come home that's involved in agriculture? Spackmans are running their dairy, Rindlesbachers are running their pumpkin patch, corn maze, that kind of thing. What else did you guys put through here?
we talked about like we raise um a couple beef every year and how we provide that for and sell it locally and just that kind of stuff. It sounds kind of dumb, but even if you're raising 2 or 3 animals a year and are providing that, it's still ag and people still care about it.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what, yeah, we talked about every little piece of what we have done in ag, like,
Yep.
And no, I mean they give you a lot more room to talk about it here too. Okay.
25 2,500 characters doesn't seem like it seems like overwhelming when you get into it. And once you start talking about yourself and like let that go, it fills up really fast.
Yeah. All right, next question's number 3. This talks about your impact on agriculture. So, how have you positively promoted or made an impact on the agricultural industry? So, a couple different ways that I've seen this done is someone will start like they'll break it down and say like local, state, national, or on our operation, off our operation, or there's a couple different ways where you can break this down, but they give you double the characters they've given you for anything else to talk through this. So, knowing that, obviously, this is going to be where they're going to really want to hear from you and hear what you're doing in agriculture.
The
and
one
I
hard
think
thing I think for me when I started going through this question, sorry, Amanda,
you're good.
um, I don't like to talk about like myself and like I don't feel like I've done a lot to positively influence,
Right.
but really kind of just brag yourself up a little bit, like make yourself sound good. And because what you are doing is important and you have done awesome things and just be proud of that.
Right.
That's just what I was gonna say too, though, like go into detail about the things that you've done. I mean, obviously you can't have the identifiers in there, but like just start and then go back and like, I don't know. Does that make that was confusing? But we just like started like when we first got married, we got involved in Farm Bureau, and then these are all the things that we've done with Farm Bureaus and
Right.
things we've done outside of Farm Bureau to like
Right.
with our involvement in agriculture. Hopefully that made sense.
Well, and these can be things that, like, for example, Brady sits on the canal board. And
Yeah.
so that, we're talking about that in here and how that's important. Obviously, for our state, water is really important. So it doesn't have to be just things in Farm Bureau. In fact, it should be representative of all facets of agriculture. For example, we had an applicant a couple years ago that um when they were talking about like the wife had a lot that she had done, but the husband didn't have a bunch. And I was talking to him and I said, well, yeah, but you drove the tractor for you drove the kiddie tractor around, hauling the kids around in the wagons at the like town event. That's a thing. That's impactful. Put it on there. So things that might seem mundane and simple, like Clayton said, those are things you need to consider and remember to put on.
And like to kind of beef up your application too, like you got to put all the little things in there
Right.
that you have done in Farm Bureau and out of Farm Bureau that impact ag.
Right.
Yeah, and like this one's really your first real opportunity to really tell your story and tell about how cool you are, even if you don't think you are. And like for us, and this worked for us, I'm not saying it's for everybody, but like this section for us was broken into 5 different paragraphs and 5 different experiences that we had had, like really specific instances where we had an impact on our local agriculture, our state agriculture. And 2 of those 5 paragraphs were outside of Farm Bureau, but 3 of my paragraphs were experiences we had inside of Farm Bureau, whether it be in Washington, D.C. with our legislators or other experiences. And then the other 2 were a little bit longer, but they were outside of Farm Bureau, Planning and Zoning Commission things that we have done and different things like specific to our operations, specific to our community that we did. And that's just kind of how we broke it down. But I do know like you shouldn't be afraid to put in a lot of like if you have Farm Bureau experiences, put it in there. Because that's a great opportunity to kind of I guess flex a little on what your involvement with Farm Bureau has been.
Right.
I think they like that too, like
Well,
your
it's a Farm Bureau award. Remember that.
yep. We
Okay.
split ours pretty similar to theirs, where we did 2-ish paragraphs of stuff outside of Farm Bureau and then 2 paragraphs of stuff inside of Farm Bureau.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and this next question really, it does kind of talk about this is where you'll really understand why sectioning it out, and like Brady said, like how they kind of spoke in paragraphs and each paragraph was a story. So this next one talks about issues facing agriculture. So talking about issues at the local, state, and national and international levels. So right there, that ought to be the clue for you that there needs to be a local section, a state section, national, and international. So um, break it out, and then it just says explain 3 important issues that the industry needs to address in the next 5 years. Choose one issue of the 3 from 3 of the 4 levels mentioned above. For example, the applicant might select ag literacy as a local issue, mental health as a state issue, and rural broadband as a national issue. So, breaking those out, talking about those, and then talking about issues that the industry needs to address in the future. And you can do that in each of those 4 paragraphs, right? Is that how you guys broke it out?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did local, state, and national just because I guess we weren't super well versed on what international issues might be.
Yeah.
But the one thing to keep in mind, especially like in this section, is think of unique things for you. Because if you can make it, speaking from experience with these, when you go through enough of these applications for the judges, things start to glaze over. And so anything you can do to kind of pop out on the page and make them remember you is a big deal. So like for me, my job is a little bit unique in that, I work for a commodity trading company. That's sounds kind of boring and it kind of is, but it's definitely unique. And so I made sure that at least one of mine was on that because it's something that I knew that nobody else was going to have perspective on like I did.
Right.
And for example, maybe locally, maybe like in Utah right now, we're having a lot of wildfires. Maybe your family's operation was affected by that and you did something to, I don't know, something to make a difference in or an issue that happened locally. Don't be afraid to point that out. And I mean, you can't be specific about where it is and things like that, but things to help those judges remember you.
Right. Um, sorry, I thought I had a different rubric here for the application because I think this is only the presentation. Yeah, it is. I'll find it. Um, but yeah, really figuring out, I mean, everyone's involved in ag and from, at the state level, we might all identify the same issues, but putting your spin on it, like Brady said, to make it your issue. Um, that says international. It's fine. But yeah, great points. Okay. This was also another A and B one. So B just says choose one of the issues from 4A to discuss how you personally have addressed or can address the issue and will work towards a solution. So a ton of characters. This is screaming, tell me a story. Tell me a story of why it's important to you. Tell me a story of what you're doing about it right now. Tell me a story of what you're going to do about it in the future. Like, really, like Brady said at the very beginning, this is a Tell Your Story award.
So we did our state issue was on water because at the time we were in a drought, still are,
We
but
still are.
obviously with my job that just is a lot and I work with, the local irrigation company. So we were able to tell a lot about my job and kind of highlight me a little more in this section, which was kind of cool. Whereas, Clayton's kind of the main agriculture. He grew up in it type stuff. So that's I think was a good way for me to pull in me into the application.
Yeah. What did you guys do, Brady and Amanda? Do you remember?
Yeah, we talked about
Favorite?
water as well. That seems to be a theme in our state, which is fine. But just, like we were saying before, when we wrote this, we tried to be kind of unique and tried to bring out points that would be a different perspective than what maybe the norm would be.
Mhm.
Um, in this one, we talked specifically about our operation and helping some of our landowners to get some funding for water optimization. And it's mutually beneficial for them. It was beneficial because they can improve their ground. For us, it was beneficial because we get to run that ground for them. So that's what we did. Kind of a unique situation.
And that's cool that you both, even though you did both talk about water, two very different things going on. One's talking about the professional world and how that's impacted the Dakota personally, but also on their operation. And then you guys are talking about partaking of programs and different things like that. So
Well,
don't,
and it was fun to tie that in because Dakota deals with secondary water on like a city system too.
yeah,
And so a lot of it deals with residential areas. And a lot of people don't understand what that actually does for residents and their lawns and everything. And so it was kind of fun to tie that in and say, agriculture does impact more than what people realize.
exactly. Exactly. Okay. This one's goals. So what goals do you have for the applicant for the next 5 years related to your career, Farm Bureau involvement, and involvement with other organizations? And what have you done to reach these goals? So if I'm looking at this, I'm taking like this and breaking it out for like maybe personal, career, Farm
Mhm.
Bureau, other organizations, right? Like cheat the system a little bit and break things out so that they're a little more digestible and a little more easy to understand.
Yeah, we literally did career, farm bureau, community involvement. Those were like our three goals. And like bold career, here's my goal. Farm bureau, here's the goal.
I mean, well, we like expounded on the goals. Like
Right.
we have like a few paragraphs in each
Yeah.
category about what we're gonna do, but
It just made it really cut and dried.
Yeah. And
We did similar.
a lot
Oh,
of you
sorry.
like did it like this and
yep,
then
yeah.
which
We
does.
did similar things, but we tied in Farm Bureau to every one of those simply because our involvement in Farm Bureau and on a local level is pretty
Heavy.
heavy. And I feel like the Farm Bureau down here is very involved in everything. And so we kind of tied in our personal goals and how Farm Bureau can help us achieve those, or how we've done a certain goal through Farm Bureau, which kind of helped a little bit tie Farm Bureau into that question as well.
Yeah.
Not saying that we have to tie in Farm Bureau to everything, but they do kind of like it.
But I mean, in a question where they specifically ask for it,
Right.
I'm really afraid to put it in there.
But we did have the bullet points just like theirs.
Yep.
So our bullet points were a little different. Ours said our first one was lead by example for our children, personal farm growth, and involvement in local community. So
Yeah. So figure out how you want to break them out. It doesn't have to be this, but figure out, whatever. Because it doesn't say community involvement, but that's
that's funny. We both did it. Yeah.
you both did it. So
And also on this one, like swing for the fence with your goals. Like even if you know that maybe it might be a little lofty, put it down. Like swing for the fence because
Right.
that can be impressive to a judge if you have pretty high expectations and high goals for yourself.
Right. Well, and I think it's important too that it's not just, I want to be a millionaire and I'm waiting for the lottery ticket to blow in the wind. Like, if it's, hey, we want to acquire 20 acres down the road, then tell me what steps you're taking to make that happen. We now meet with a financial advisor 2 times a year. I picked up a second job. I sell my kidneys, whatever it is that shows that you're actively working towards whatever that is. Great. Um, okay. So leadership experience. This is one. Let me scroll back up here. Sorry, don't get dizzy on me. So we talked about goals. That's worth 10% of your application. Farm Bureau experience, and then other leadership experience. So the next two sections, Farm Bureau experience and other. Get down here. Okay, so this is wanting to know Farm Bureau experiences. This is worth 20% of the application. So really, they want to know your impacts on agriculture. They want to know leadership experience in Farm Bureau and out of Farm Bureau. So the next two sections are going to look similar, but one's for Farm Bureau, one's for not. So this is probably where I get the most panic with people in putting the application because everything else thus far is just tell us what you've done. But a lot of people, especially if you're new to Farm Bureau, get here and panic. Like, what if I only have that I'm a, you know, tri-county member? Great, put it down. But this is where you need to sit down with your county president or whoever's getting you involved in Farm Bureau and come up with some opportunities for you to list out some more things here. Like my example earlier of the tractor train driver, that's going on here is something that he did. So another thing I think people forget is that if it says list, it wants a list. So it literally wants this exact thing they've put right here. So this whole section should just look like this. A1, da 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 da, come down here a minute, and it might say you're going to change this to A2. And it's going to be whatever. But just
If we
talk
put things
about,
together, we listed A1 and A2.
yeah.
Yep, that's what we did too.
Yep, so you might have a section that's A1, a section that's A2, and then you might have a third section that says A1 and 2.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, however you want to do that. I would say if you're maybe lacking a little bit, maybe don't have that A1 and A2 section, just list things twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
another trick too is like for us, we put on there that we were elected the county YF&R chairs. It might be intuitive to most that with that you're probably on your county board of directors, but we listed it twice.
yep.
So we listed A1 and A2 elected county farm bureau chairs. A1 and A2 served on county board of directors for the same time frame, but it's two different bullet points. Even if you think it's intuitive, list it.
That's a really good idea.
Some of the things we put is like coordinate. So like things that we've had to coordinate. So
Yep.
coordinate the local Farm Bureau short story and video contest. Or we were attendees at the YF&R DC, Washington, DC trip.
Yep.
And so that's kind of other difference. So if you've attended, I mean, we put attendees of state annual convention and all the years we did that, and fusion conference and all the years we did that. So you may think your list is small, but if you've attended any of that stuff, that's another thing to add.
Yeah.
Right.
But everything you've attended, anything you've helped organize or just helped with, like served burgers at the YF&R, some, I don't know, like any little thing like that.
Well, and any awards too. You know, if you've applied for this award before, put on there that you've applied for it. And that's another thing is I've heard two things more recently. Number one is I've heard you have to be on the state committee to win the award. False. False. People who are on the state committee,
Walker won last year.
exactly. The people that are on the state committee do it to lead by example. They have no tie to the judging process, to picking the judges, to anything like that. So don't let that concern you. And number two, how many years did you guys, SPACMans, did you guys apply before you won?
Twice.
Yeah,
It was just 2 times, yeah.
for years. Yep.
Friendless Balkers, you guys applied at least 5 times, right?
Yep, we're
Sure.
going with that.
They were
Honestly, I wish we would have been able to
Yeah.
do that. Like we have won our first year, which is kind of rare, but I actually looking back, I look at our goals and I'm like, I wish we'd have had time to like go through and review them and
right.
like actually refine this process because it really does help going back and looking through it.
And that's what's important to remember too is this application is hard one time. And it's not
Yes.
even hard.
Yeah.
It's just time consuming one time. But then next year, all you're doing is improving. It's we liked this paragraph, we didn't, or we have these other experiences we want to add or replace. Like once you get through it once, the rest is easy.
Well, in second and third place, correct me if I'm wrong, are money, right?
Yeah, $300 for second place and 200 for third place.
Yep.
So I mean, if anything, do it for the money. And you get the money right then.
Yeah.
And a big check. Who doesn't want an excuse to hold a big check? And you might even get the four-wheeler right then, depending on if you arm wrestled the discussion meet winner.
We might even just get a bunch of us and throw it in the back of your truck. It's been known to happen.
Been known to
Doesn't
happen.
happen.
So, but yeah, but just pay attention to this, that it wants leadership roles, involvement opportunities, recognition and awards, committees, criminy. I think sometimes we don't realize that we're on committees. Okay? If you're part of planning an event, that's a committee.
Yeah, I was gonna say sometimes you have to like add the word committee to
Right.
what you did. Like,
We're not making up jobs. We're talking about things you're actually doing,
yeah,
but we're just giving it an official title. And you have permission to do that. So,
And I would be a little bit careful just putting like attended this, attended that, attended this. Like get creative on that. Like even if you were just attending and you got there and I mean, I don't know, the dinner wasn't set up, you know, put on there rather than just attended, helped with the, county spring issue surfacing meeting or, just be creative in how you word that. Because if you just have a whole list of attended, it's like,
looks like you
great. I'm glad you're participating, but we want to see leadership experience here.
Right.
So find any reason you can to maybe change that word of attended. I mean, if you just went and I mean, obviously we got to be honest, right? But if you had if you helped at all in any of that, figure out how to get creative with how you list those.
If you're helping with
participation,
high school discussion meet or high school area contest, things like that, you can put that too. And you might have more attended things for your first year or two, right? Because you are just attending. But as you grow or as you've been around longer, you should be growing in opportunities, and that's what they want to see.
Well, and a weird one I just saw, like, don't short yourself. Like, I just looked at ours and it says recipient of private pesticide and herbicide license.
That's for the next one. You're on the wrong question.
It doesn't matter. But, like, literally, I would have put that because I did put that.
Yeah.
But, like, it sounds kind of dumb, but put something like that on there because that's something that you've done.
Right. That
And
shows that you're growing your education to better your
exactly,
better
exactly.
jobs, better whatever. So Just the two different. So for 6A, it wants County Farm Bureau and then State and American Farm Bureau. Obviously, your county's probably going to be the biggest um, compared to State and American Farm Bureau, which is totally fine. But if you're going to YF&R conference, Fusion conference, we had AFBF conference was in Utah. If you attended that, put that on there. Um, Trying to think. I think those are kind of,
I, oh,
no? Okay.
never mind. Sorry.
Okay. Um, okay, so this one is just list other agricultural leadership roles. So this is things, and it gives you some good examples. Farm credit, soil conservation districts, FSA boards, farm cooperatives, 4-H, county fair, landowner associations, wild, fish and wildlife boards, your
Canal company
board,
boards.
canal
Your
company boards, um, anything like that. And same thing, you're doing it the same way. A1 and A2 or A1, A2, list them out.
Well, I like what Brady said earlier too about being creative. Don't just put attendee. Like I like what he said about if you've done anything, figure out a new word for that and make it sound a little bit different because it will stand out.
Right.
Like
And
don't just say you've been to your county fair. You guarantee most people have helped at the county fair at some level. Just get creative on how you word that.
So like Clayton's pest control thing, that would go here. So the only difference between A and B is B's wanting community and non-agriculture things. So, you're in the Kiwanis Club or you're in the Lions Club or you do this church thing, you have this church calling, you served a mission for your church or have done like a volunteer trip or things like that. That's where you're gonna put these kind of stuff in here. And this
Coach,
is something too,
like
like,
coach the sport or something.
Yeah, we literally
yeah.
put that Kate Clayton coached high school baseball and I coached gymnastics. I
Yeah.
mean, that's still
I was told by a national judge though that if it's like church involvement to not specify like
church.
which church. Like,
Right.
no, that sounds weird. In Utah, we all know which church it is usually,
Right.
but on a national level, if you get that far, just mission service, most people know what that means.
Yeah. Service mission.
Volunteer service mission or whatever.
then in
Um,
the A section, one thing that we did is we added all of our FFA degrees. So like state degree recipient this year, American degree recipient this year. I won Star State. We put that in there, like listed all those out separately. All of your FFA
yeah.
degrees that you got, we put those in there in that section too.
Oh.
Zakia, is it in the rules that you can only go back it suggests only going back a certain amount of years? Is that?
So it's not in the rules, and that's kind of been like a,
I couldn't remember, and it could have just been you telling us
and I
to,
don't know what the fine line is, but
yeah.
I have to store. So like on the AA one, for part of it, you have to use your finances, and it'll say like first year on the operation. Well, if it's like part of your family's operation that you're buying into, I tell people basically once you've graduated high school, like from 18 on,
Hmm.
is kind of what I've told people in the past. Um, just because anything earlier than that, I mean, and this is financially, I don't think you can count. Now, this, I think for your FFA degrees and like 4-H things, I think that's good. I don't think that I would put like Grand Champion Sheep Showman at the Cache County Fair 2008 when I was 10 years old. I'm probably not going to put that. Um, but I think for this section, I think highlighting your FFA involvement is a good thing.
I think
Well,
so
it shows
too.
your ag involved. I like it. I actually really like that. This is the first time I've heard of someone listing their FFA degrees, and I really like that.
Yeah. Sorry if I've forgotten to take some notes the last couple times, but we've just been talking. Okay, so we talked about non-other things. This gives you a good list to go off of right here. The other thing too is if you're reading through this and thinking, man, I don't have a lot in that section, doesn't matter. Turn your application in, and if you don't win from now till next year, you have 365 days to be volunteering for the Kiwanis Club, going to the school board, getting on the PTA, doing, building opportunities to turn your thing in. But don't let you feeling like you don't have enough in one category stop you from turning your application in. I've received applications, and I do every year, of people that have one or two lines in a category. That's fine, but let's turn it in and get some feedback for you so you know better where to go for next year.
Turn it in with one or two things, go back to your goals and say, I want to be more involved in the community.
Exactly. Exactly. So this is just kind of it's the last question. It's not even a question, but it says, if you have any circumstances that affected your leadership experience, please tell us.
We put
You can leave this blank. Most people do, but if you had something that was like, I broke both my legs, or I served time in the state penitentiary and couldn't be of
Maybe don't
service.
put that on
Specify that. Okay.
there.
Maybe don't put that on there.
Brady and Amanda, did you guys put anything down for this one?
No, I don't
We
think
didn't
so.
either.
No,
So
we didn't.
Yeah, and I think where it says can be left blank, you can leave it. So
Brady
that
hasn't been having a hard time.
right, right. Hard time reading. That's the application in that's the whole application. So, let's talk about, do you guys have any other tips or tricks or things you want to talk about on the application before we talk about the presentation?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Just tell your story. Just be thinking that the whole time you're filling it out. Tell
Yep.
your story.
And I think it's important, we talked about this in the AA one too, but it's important that you have people read over this before you turn it in. Okay? I'm being
Lots of people.
your English teacher here. Get somebody that has no relation to what you do for your profession and or what you do in agriculture. Someone that's completely out of it, because your judge might be a banker. The judge might be someone that has no connection to agriculture. It might be an English teacher. And so you need to make sure that you're talking in jargon that they can understand. And sometimes we get stuck in our own world and we want to just talk about, I can't even pronounce the name of the company that Brady works for, and he wants to talk about trading commodities. I don't even know what that is. So make sure you're talking in a way that people can understand. I know that was a thing with Clayton and Dakota when we were practicing your presentation. Um, Talking about some of the like water specific things that you had talked about, and like making sure it was palatable to other people that might not be from Utah and understand that we have a water quality, no, water quantity issue rather than a quantity.
Oh,
Yep, that's the one. So, okay, probably the largest question I get asked every year about this application is, what am I supposed to do for the presentation? Okay. If you come back to almost always the answer to everything you need is in the rules. So, come back here to presentation guidelines. Right here, this is the thing I take everybody back to. So, the presentation is an interactive 25-minute presentation where the applicant or applicants has the opportunity to share their contents of their application in a narrative form to a panel of judges. So we'll just peel back the layers on this. That means all you're doing is taking your application and telling its story in the form of a PowerPoint. So we used only words on the application. Now we're using pictures. Now, when we were talking about the story of Brady and them helping some people get ag water optimization money, now I'm bringing in pictures and I'm talking about that. Okay, when Brady and Amanda were talking about in their application, a time that, leadership experience or whatever, and they talked about their kids hop in the tractor, I'll take you with me. Okay, I will never forget that tagline, and that's boom, we're putting that from our application. Now we have pictures. Now we're seeing the faces of the kids. So it's important to note that the judges judging your presentation have not seen your application before. So it's really a big, not a show, but you're just giving them a presentation of how freaking cool you are. What things you worried about, what your occupation is, how you're involved in ag, what goals you have, and what leadership experiences you have. That's the presentation.
Yeah, and that's the feedback that the one judge gave to us is ours was a lot more focused on what our goals were and what we had done. And we mentioned this article that we wrote for the website, Farm Bureau website, that was pretty cool. And we mentioned it, and I said, "This is the picture. This is when it happened," you know. And then we just moved right on. And then afterwards, that was at dinner. The judge told us, he's like, "Hey, I would have loved to hear more about that. Like your goals, that's cool, fine,
I think we
whatever."
talked a
But
lot about issues, like the ag issues too, which
Yeah.
we should have focused less on and more on ourselves, like on our own story, like Brady was saying, like emphasize the article, you know.
Right. And the judges can ask 3 questions, but it's up to you to determine the time. So, for example, you have 25 minutes in the room from when you walk in to when you walk out. Well, from when they say start to stop, basically. So, if you know that questions are hard for you and it's hard to think on your feet, you might want to present for 20 minutes and only leave 5 minutes for questions. If you know that you thrive in the questions and that you can really not yag on in questions, but that you thrive in thinking on your feet like that, you might present for 15 and leave 10 minutes for questions. But that time frame and how you schedule that's totally up to you guys. Um, it'll just be a PowerPoint, you'll have a clicker, and that's it. It's not interactive as far as you're not like asking the judges questions during your presentation. It's you're presenting and then there's the time for questions, if that makes sense.
it does, don't make it too long. Like ours was 6 slides, and one of those was a picture. Was just a slide full of pictures to introduce ourselves. So like, but that's kind of more, I guess I would say more my style is like less is more for me, and I thrive better in that situation. So for us, 6 slides was plenty, and we were great. But don't get too slide heavy, or else you're just going to make the judges just glaze over and make it hard for them to give you a good score. So
Don't get too word heavy on your slides either.
Yeah.
Ours was 7 slides. We just looked at ours, and one of them was because of what Sakia mentioned earlier of explaining what. So, for example, we put in a linear, and no one knew what that was. And so we literally put in pictures of the linear when we explained what it was. And that I think it helped a lot to give them a visual of what that was. And then we literally put like 2 or 3 bullet points and on each slide just to, if you get distracted or if you get rambling, you can look up and go, okay, this is my next point.
Right. And nothing less than 20-point font. Anytime you make a PowerPoint for people that
Big
you're
font.
presenting,
Yep.
nothing less than 20.
And not big colors. We had someone that
Flashy
presented
colors.
to us and they had like bright red. It was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah. So, the delivery of the presentation rubric that we have here is broken down into a couple different things as far as and this is on the website too, so you can pull this up, but just has engaging, opening, and thoughtful conclusion, bridges ideas and messages. So instead of, and this is something that I'm learning too, instead of maybe just highlighting each question in the application and making each question a slide for your presentation, think about how you're bridging one idea to the next idea and maybe take a step back and present it at a high level. But right here again talks about a coherent storyline, tells a compelling, well-organized story. Again, like Brady said in the beginning, this is a Tell Your Story award. Talks about, and we've talked about this a lot, using understandable, palatable language. We're talking about a linear. What the heck's a linear? We're talking about trading commodities. What does that mean? You take a bag of corn and give it to a guy and he gives you a bag of cottonseed? I don't know. So talking about those things in a way that people can understand, and being an expert in those things. So I can't tell you about commodities or linears, but these guys can. So you guys really making sure that whatever you're talking about, that you do know your stuff in. The rest is pretty just basic presenter stuff. Uses appropriate body language, uses time effectively, has a professional appearance.
I will say something about Brady and Amanda. They did something very professional, in my opinion, when I watched them on a national level. And even though, like Brady was saying, beginning and Amanda was saying that it's very one-sided on their application, that it sounds that way. I haven't read their application, but when they delivered it and they presented it, it did not sound one-sided at all. They took turns presenting, they took turns answering what they did and telling what they did as a team. And that's very big. I've seen certain people present or other people present, and it's very one-sided. You totally know who's doing the work.
Yeah.
And when Brady and Amanda presented, it was not that way. You knew that they were a team, and you knew they were doing it as a family, really. And that really stood out to me.
Yeah. So the next section of this just talks about the content. Um, so addresses the contestants' involvement, significant successes with Agriculture Farm Bureau and other organizations, conveys their unique contribution to the industry, and uses visual aids well, gives thoughtful knowledge and clear answers. So this part's talking about the questions. So do you give clear answers that are not knowledgeable? Puts any negatives into positive content, answers slash clarifies, expands on topics. I mean, a lot of this is pretty self-explanatory. So, don't mumble, answer the question, but give me more, right? So that's the presentation part. And honestly, like I said, once you really dive into it, it's not that crazy. I would do 10 presentations over write the application out, but
I was just gonna say the presentation was way easier than the application.
right, that's just my personality. So, um that's that. If you guys have any questions as you're filling it out, a good place to go, if I can pull this back out, is when you go to the Farm Bureau website again, leadership and programs, young farmer and ranchers, and then click on this contact us page. And most of the people on here are accurate. There's one or two that are from our last committee, but everyone on here will be able to point you in the right direction and get you in contact with somebody if you need some help, need some assistance. You can message us on Instagram or Facebook too. My contact, myself on an email, is also on the bottom of this page. We want you guys to be successful. We don't want this to be something that is burdensome. Like I said, it's a little tough one time. After that, it's a lot simpler. So, if you guys have any questions, don't be afraid to reach out. Remember, applications are due September 26th for
Wait,
2020.
on the Farm Bureau website, it says the 27th, and then on the application, it says the 26th.
See, we'll correct that. We'll correct
Just
that.
wanted to make sure. Is it the 26th?
Yeah, it's the Friday. It's usually that fourth. Is it? I think it's the fourth. The fourth Friday. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's almost always the fourth Friday in September, 5 o'clock. So you just email it in. Don't worry about formatting or anything like that. Send it in, and we'll get you either some money or a four-wheeler, or best case scenario, some feedback. So, thank you all. If you have any questions, reach out to us.